This happened in the fall of 2021, when I was living alone for the first time in my life. I was 29, old enough to act like I had everything under control, but still young enough to feel that small fear when the house goes quiet and you realize no one is coming home later. I had just crawled out of a breakup that left me hollow in a way I did not know how to explain, and I rented a small townhouse outside a dying little town in Pennsylvania because it was cheap, clean, and far away from memories. The units all looked the same, lined up like someone copied and pasted one house again and again. Beige siding, small porches, tiny fenced backyards, gravel instead of grass, the kind that under your shoes and makes every step sound louder than it should. The neighborhood felt sleepy and polite, with wind chimes that never stopped and porch lights that stayed on too long. Mostly older people, a couple of young families. Everyone nodded in passing, then went back to their own lives. That was exactly what I wanted. I did not want friends. I did not want noise. I wanted to go to work, come home, and let time do its job. But almost right away, I noticed one man who did not fit into the clean, quiet pattern. He lived a few doors down, in a unit that looked exactly like mine, except his porch light was always dimmer, like the bulb was tired. He was tall and broad, maybe mid-40s, with a beard that looked like he trimmed it with his hands instead of scissors. The first time I saw him, I was pulling into my driveway after work a little after 10, headlights sweeping over the row of porches, and he was standing at the edge of his driveway facing the street. Not leaning, not smoking, not pacing. Just standing there like he had been placed in that spot and forgotten. I remember thinking, okay, maybe he is waiting for someone. Maybe he is having a bad night. I lifted my hand a little, not a full wave, just a polite gesture, and he did not respond. His head did not move. His posture did not change. He just stared at me the way you stare at a car that drove past your house too slowly. After that, I started noticing the time. It was always late, always dark, and almost always when I came home, he was out there. Some nights he stood by his porch rail, some nights near his mailbox. Once, I saw him at the end of the cul-de-sac, still facing the street, still and silent like a signpost. I told myself he had insomnia, or he was a smoker who did not want to smoke inside, or he worked nights too. I tried to be normal about it. I told my mom on the phone, laughing like it was a quirky thing, and she said, "Just lock your doors, okay?" My friend said, "He's probably harmless." And I wanted to believe that because believing anything else meant admitting I was alone with a problem I could not control. Then I noticed another detail, and it was small, but it got under my skin. Around 2 in the morning, sometimes later, I would wake up for no reason. Not from a sound, not from a dream, just awake. And when I would check the time on my phone, it would be the same number more often than it should have been. 2:17. Not 2:15, not 2:20, but 2:17. Like my body had set an alarm I never asked for. I would stare at the glowing digits and feel annoyed with myself. Then I would roll over and try to sleep. The first few times, I did not connect it to anything. I just blamed stress. I started connecting it the night I heard the gate. My bedroom was at the back of the unit on the first floor, and there was a sliding glass door with vertical blinds that led into the small backyard. The yard was nothing special, a narrow strip of gravel and a few weeds that fought their way through it. A wooden fence with a gate that latched on the side. The kind of cheap gate that always sounded like it was complaining when you opened it. That night, I went to bed around midnight, exhausted. I had work early. I had eaten something in front of the TV and passed out with my phone charging beside me. At 2:17, I woke up to a sound I can only describe as metal scraping wood, slow and deliberate, like someone was trying to be quiet but did not care if they failed. I lay there staring into darkness, heart suddenly awake, listening. The sound stopped. For a few seconds, everything was silent. Then I heard the of gravel. One step, then another. Not quick, not scattered like an animal, even steady steps, like someone walking in a place they already knew. My mouth went dry. I sat up slowly, holding my breath the way you do when you do not want the world to know you are listening. I reached for my phone, and my hands shook enough that I almost dropped it. I did not own a gun. I did not have a dog. I had a kitchen knife in a drawer that suddenly felt like a joke. I slid out of bed and moved to the blinds. There was a small gap where two slats never fully met, and I tried to look through it without pulling anything aside. The motion light was not on. The yard looked like a black rectangle. I could hear the gravel, but I could not see a person. I called 911 with my thumb, quiet and clumsy, and whispered my address when the dispatcher answered. She asked questions in a calm voice that made me feel stupid for being scared. I said I heard someone in my backyard. I said the gate. I said footsteps. She said officers were on the way. Those 10 minutes felt like an hour. I crouched in the hallway, out of view of the sliding door, holding my phone like it was the only thing keeping me real. When the police finally arrived, their lights painted the front windows red and blue, and for a second the whole townhouse looked like it was on fire. 2 officers came to my door, the same kind of tired faces you see on people who have done too many night calls for things that turn out to be nothing. I explained what I heard. I explained the time. One of them walked around back while the other stayed with me and asked if I had been drinking, if I had pets, if I had anything missing. I kept saying no, 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 and my own voice sounded thin. The officer who checked the yard came back and said the gate was closed, no signs of tampering, no footprints he could see. He shrugged like that was the end of the story. The one with me said, "Probably a raccoon," and he did not say it kindly. He said it like a warning that I was wasting his time. They left. I stood in my doorway watching their car disappear down the road, and I hated myself for calling. But I also hated the way they made me feel like an idiot for being afraid in my own home. I did not sleep after that. When morning finally came, I went into the backyard and checked the gate myself. That is when I saw the stone. It was flat, about the size of a paperback book, wedged under the bottom edge of the gate. The gate had a spring that made it swing shut, but the stone stopped it from closing fully. It would have left just enough space for someone to slip it open without the latch clicking. It was subtle, smart, not something an animal would do. I stood there staring at that stone like it was staring back. I picked it up and threw it into the gravel. The sound of it landing was loud in the quiet morning. Then I called the police again and told them what I found. The person on the phone sounded bored and told me they would add it to the report, but unless someone broke in or damaged property, there was not much they could do. I asked if they could talk to neighbors or check cameras. They said no. That was the moment I realized the system I had trusted my whole life only worked after something happened, not before. And I was standing alone in a yard that suddenly felt too small, too exposed, like a stage. 2 nights later, it got worse. At 2:17, I woke to the sound of my back door handle turning. Not the sliding glass door itself, but the little latch in the frame, the gentle rattle of someone testing it. A pause, then a harder jiggle, like frustration, like patience running out. I sat up in bed so fast my head spun. I stared at the blinds and I could not see anything, but I could feel someone on the other side the way you can feel a person standing behind you without hearing them. My mouth tasted like metal. I called 911 again. This time I did not whisper. I spoke through clenched teeth like I was forcing my voice to work. While I waited, I moved into the hallway and crouched, hiding like a child. My motion light clicked on, and through the tiny gap in the blinds, I saw a shadow cross the glass. A man. Tall, broad shoulders. He did not rush. He did not flinch when the light hit him. He just stood there like the light belonged to him. The officers came again. Same two. This time, one of them finally walked into the yard and crouched in the gravel, shining his flashlight low. He said there were footprints, big ones, leading right up to the door. That should have been enough. It felt like proof. It felt like validation. But he still stood up and said, "No entry, no damage, not much we can do." He told me to keep my doors locked. The next day, I bought cameras. Not expensive ones, but decent. Wi-Fi, cloud storage, motion alerts. I mounted one above the back door and one above the front porch. Then I sat in my living room that night with the lights off, watching the live feed on my phone like I was guarding my own life. The quiet felt thick. Every tiny sound in the house made me look up. The refrigerator hum, the heater kicking on, the wind tapping a fence board. I waited for 2:17 like it was a scheduled appointment with death. 2:17 came. Nothing happened. 2:21, still nothing. At 2:23, the back camera triggered. A man stepped into frame through the gate like he knew exactly where to place his feet to avoid the sensor until the last second. Black hoodie, hood up, jeans, gloves. He walked straight to my door, and then he stopped, tilted his head up, and looked directly at the camera. Not around it, not past it, into it. Like he knew I was on the other side watching. Then he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was not even a normal smile. It was slow, stretched, like he was practicing what a smile should look like and getting it slightly wrong. He held it for a moment that made my skin crawl. Then, without taking his eyes off the camera, he raised his hand and tapped the glass once. Just once, like a knock meant only for me. Then he stepped back and disappeared into the darkness the way a shadow disappears when the light moves. I called the police and showed them the footage. They watched it. I could see it hit them, the way their eyes changed slightly, the way they stopped joking. One of them even said, "Yeah, that's unsettling." But then he leaned back into the same logic, the same wall. No break-in, no weapon, no property damage, nothing they could charge. Hands tied. Patrols increased. Advice given. End of story. That night, I did not sleep in my bed. I drove to a cheap hotel near the highway and sat on the edge of the mattress staring at my phone like it might bite me. I kept replaying the smile, the calmness, the way he moved like he belonged there. When I came back the next day, the backyard was quiet, sun bright enough to make me feel ridiculous again. For a few minutes, I almost believed I had overreacted. Then I looked at the sliding glass door. There were handprints on it, 4 of them, 2 higher up and 2 lower, like someone had crouched down and rested their hands against the glass for a while. Not smeared, not frantic, just placed. Like someone had been leaning there comfortably, peering in, waiting to see movement. The prints were muddy, and the mud was dark, almost black. I scrubbed them off until my arms hurt. I kept checking over my shoulder while I cleaned, like I expected him to be standing there behind me in the yard, smiling silently. That evening, when I checked my mailbox, I found a note wedged inside. Lined notebook paper, small, cramped handwriting, neat enough to be deliberate. It said, "The cops leave, but I don't." I stood in the sunlight holding that paper, and my hands shook so hard the note fluttered like it was alive. The neighbors watered their plants. Someone's wind chimes sang in the breeze. A child laughed somewhere down the street, and I felt like I was standing in the middle of a normal world while something rotten was watching me from underneath it. I filed another report. The officer who took it looked genuinely disturbed by the note. He promised they would do extra patrols, talk to neighbors, see if anyone had cameras. He sounded like he meant it, but that promise did not make me feel safe. It made me feel like I had reached the limit of what anyone could do for me. I decided to leave. I broke the lease. I did not care about the deposit. I packed my clothes, my laptop, my important papers, and I moved like my life depended on speed. On my last night there, I did not sleep. I sat on the living room floor with the lights off, phone in my hand, shoes on, keys in my pocket. I watched the camera feed again, my eyes burning, my thoughts looping, my body buzzing with fear. At 2:17, the back camera triggered. He was there. But this time, he did not stop at the door. He walked closer to the camera, closer than before, until his hood filled most of the frame. Then he leaned in. I could not see his face fully, just darkness and the faint pale curve of his cheek. His mouth moved. The audio did not catch it, but I read his lips anyway, because I was staring so hard it felt like my eyes would bleed. He said my name. I stood up so fast my knee knocked the coffee table. I looked around my living room like he might be inside already, like the camera feed was not outside, but a window into my own space. Then the front camera triggered. I froze. My stomach dropped. The porch was empty at first, just the steps and the rail, and the faint glow of the streetlight. Then, slowly, as if he had been standing just out of frame waiting for the sensor, he stepped into view. Same hoodie, same calm. He faced the door and lifted his hand, not to knock, to rest his palm against my front door like he was feeling the warmth of the house, like he was greeting it. I did not move. I could not move. My lungs forgot how to work. Then, in the camera feed, his head turned slightly and he looked directly into the lens again. And he smiled that same wrong smile. But this time, it was wider, like he was happy. My phone vibrated in my hand, a notification. The camera app. Motion detected. Basement. I did not have a basement camera. I never installed one. I never even opened the basement door more than once when I moved in because it smelled like wet wood and rust and something I could not name. But my phone was showing a third camera tile I did not recognize, labeled in the app like it had always been there. I stared at it, certain it was a glitch, certain my exhausted brain was inventing things. The tile was dark, grainy, like an old security feed. And then the image brightened slightly, and I realized I was looking at my own basement stairs from the bottom, as if a camera had been placed down there, aimed up toward the door. I watched, unable to breathe, as the basement door handle turned from the inside. The door opened slowly, just enough for a thin line of hallway light to slice into the darkness. And in that thin line, I saw movement. Not a person stepping out, not yet. Just a shape shifting behind the door like someone was standing there pressed close, listening. A whisper slid through my living room, so quiet I almost missed it. It did not come from my phone speaker. It did not come from the TV. It came from the air, from the walls, from the space beneath the floorboards. Ryan. I did not scream. I wish I could say I did something brave, like I grabbed a weapon or called the police or confronted it. I did nothing like that. I grabbed my keys in my bag and I ran out the front door barefoot, not caring if he was on the porch, not caring if he was waiting. I ran into the night like an animal and did not stop until I reached my car. I slammed the door, locked it, and stared at my townhouse. The porch was empty. The street was empty. The cameras on my phone showed my porch empty, my backyard empty, like none of it ever happened. But the basement tile was still there, dark, waiting. I drove away. I did not go back. A week later, I got a message on Facebook from a woman named Emma. She said she was the new tenant who moved into my unit after me. Her message was short, polite, like she did not want to sound crazy. "Hi, sorry to bother you. I think you used to live here. Did you ever hear footsteps in the backyard at night? Around 2 something? And did you ever notice a man standing outside 3 doors down?" I stared at the message for a long time. My finger hovered over the reply box. I thought about warning her. I thought about telling her to leave. I thought about explaining the cameras and the handprints and the note and the basement feed that should not exist. But I did not reply. Because at that moment, my phone buzzed with a notification from the camera app. The same app I had deleted and reinstalled twice. The same account I had changed the password for. The same cameras that were still mounted on a townhouse I no longer lived in. Motion detected. 217. I opened the app. The porch camera feed loaded first. The image was grainy in the dark. And there he was, standing at my old front door, hoodie up, still as a statue, as if he had never moved in the weeks since I left. Then he turned his head slowly, like he could sense my eyes on him. He looked straight into the camera, and he smiled. Then the back camera feed loaded. The sliding door, the gravel, the fence gate. Someone was standing in my backyard. Not him, me. Same height, same build, same posture. Barefoot on the gravel like I had run out there in the night. My head was angled toward the glass door, and my hands were raised, too high, too low, like I was about to press them against the glass. The image froze for a second, and the app lagged, and my heart hammered so hard it hurt. Then the audio, which never caught anything before, cracked like static. And a voice, low and calm, came through. Not his voice, mine. "I don't leave," it said. I threw the phone across the room like it was burning, and for a long time after that, I did not sleep at night without a light on. Even now, years later, sometimes I wake up for no reason and check the time, and when I see 2:17, I lie there perfectly still, listening for the sound of gravel, listening for a gate that should be miles away. And sometimes, in the quiet between my breaths, I swear I can hear someone smiling in the dark.